Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Mindfulness in the Morning. We have a very special guest with us, and we are saying hello to our West Coast folks this morning, and good afternoon to our East Coast folks. This webinar is actually part of our Be Well series here at FitSpot. To give you a little context about FitSpot before I introduce our special guest, FitSpot is really working with companies and commercial properties to bring wellness to the workplace. It's really key for us to make sure that we are bringing a holistic wellness approach to employees and tenants of buildings, so they really feel like not only are they being mindful about their physical health, they're also being mindful about their mental health. And today, as part of this series, we are really going to be speaking about mindfulness in the morning. This is going to be a recorded webinar for us. Most of them are live, but we will be sending this out to everyone, and you are welcome to email us back if you have any questions about just mindfulness in the morning. If you have any questions about FitSpot, if you have any questions for Chris about Joy Connector, we are here to help and make sure that this webinar is really fruitful for you. So to sort of intro Chris before she gives us a little bit more about herself. Chris has about 25 years of corporate communications experience. She has been sort of, on the ground with employees and executive leaders, really helping them think about a healthier way of living. And we're excited to not only have her today on our webinar, but also to have her as part of the FitSpot family. She's actually, works with our team, works with our clients, and we're really excited about having you here, Chris. So welcome. We're so excited.
Hillary, thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Chris McClellan. I'm really happy to be here and part of the FitSpot team out here in LA. So good morning, West Coast, and good afternoon, East Coast.
Well, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, about Joy Connector, and sort of, your experience in this space.
You got it. I started my career, as you said, more than 25 years ago. I actually started in Boston and migrated to New York City. And I loved the corporate world, and I loved working in executive leadership and really helping organizations kind of harness talent and make it even better and work with the best of what we have. And in doing so, I realized, wow, very often we're just focusing on the mind and not on all of the other aspects of our holistic being, like the physical part of our being and the emotional part and, connecting to ourselves, and how all of that really needs to be taken into account in order to bring the best of who we are to our work and to our lives. So that's how I started Joy Connector. I wanted to take more of a holistic approach and work with people and organizations and team up with fabulous organizations like FitSpot to get the word out, to work with people in a broader and in a deeper way to make, their lives and their work more fulfilling.
That's wonderful. I feel like that's the goal, right? I mean, to have that sort of work life and life balance. So today's topic, around mindfulness in the morning, why is this something that's really important to you?
I guess through experience and repetition, I recognized I was definitely that person that, would set my alarm, pick up my phone, check email right away. And then I was rushing out the door, after a shower with like a cup of coffee in my hand and maybe like, a donut on the way. Like there was not a lot of time that I was taking for me or taking my approach into account into how I was approaching my day. And as I took more responsibility on to support others in their day, in their lives, for their teams, for their organizations, I recognized, wow, I really need to be living this practice. So I started to build these practices that I'm going to share with you today into my day and my life, and found a dramatic difference through a lot of trial and error. So happy to share that with you today to see what kind of success it lends to, again, your lives, but your teams in the corporate world, and ultimately your productivity.
Wonderful. Well, we're excited to kick it off today and to put some context, I guess, around this whole approach to being mindful in the morning. We pulled together some stats here. I mean, are these stats very common with where you're seeing problems in the workforce around burnout and it's just challenges that people are having?
So much, Hillary. This is like right on the money. Stress and what stress does to the body and to the mind. I read this statistic the other day that was something like sleep deprivation and lack of relaxation practices costs American companies $63 billion a year.
Wow. I believe it.
Yeah. We're kind of a stress culture. So I think these are right on the money.
Yeah, no. And that's something that we're seeing as well. It's just the way that people are working with technology being so accessible. And that's, of course, everybody knows it, but having, like you said, waking up and checking your phone, it's definitely something that it becomes a habit. And do you think we can break these habits? Do you think that that's something that, people will be able to do?
For sure. Just based on my own experience, what actions we take, the mind will follow.
Right.
The mind will follow. So it's really a matter of like taking the action. I heard a quote about, one of the athletes who said something about like, how is it, do you get motivated to go to the gym every day? And he said, I go to the gym every day. Right. So it's really a matter of taking the action, and the mind will follow. So I definitely think we can break the habits or create the habits that support our lives.
Love it. Well, and kind of speaking to that, when you're talking about, practices and action, how do you sort of break it down? In the slide here, we kind of show a little bit about, the four kind of quadrants of the body, the mind, the heart, the spirit. How do you kind of address each of those when you're thinking about, mindfulness, especially when you kick off your day?
Yeah, well, it's when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I recognize is that my mind, is active. It's active in my subconscious when I'm sleeping, in my dreams. But when I wake up, my first thought is typically what needs to happen today.
Right.
So my mind is active right away. It's when I like to kind of take stock of the other parts of myself. It's when I like to just, maybe put a hand on my heart and take a breath and go, oh, right, I've got a body here that's attached to this mind. Or how am I feeling? Maybe I feel great after a good night's sleep and that's what's going on. Or I feel a little restless, or maybe I had a dream that was a little bit disturbing and that's kind of weighing on my heart. And then there's spirit, which is really my, as you say here, the relationship to the environment. So kind of what's going on around me and how am I relating to that? It could be as simple as you hear, a baby crying in the other room, or you have your window open, you hear birds outside your window. So it's really kind of recognizing again, where do I fit into this bigger picture, and just taking stock of all these aspects of myself.
Yeah. Well, and, when you speak of that and you kind of, highlight these different areas and taking the time in the morning, with the busybodies that we all are, jumping out of bed to, deal with children, or to, your alarm goes off and your day is starting, you feel like you have to move, how have you sort of worked with people to slow them down a little bit?
For me, the number one activity that really encompasses all of these activities or all of these aspects of the human life is breath work. Mm-hmm. So even if it's, I open my eyes, I close my eyes, I take a deep breath, I'm taking stock of my physical senses and awareness. I'm slowing down my neural processes with my mind. With that breath, it kind of slows things down. I get a moment to kind of take stock of what's going on in my heart, and I'm gaining a relationship to my environment. So breath work is probably like a good all-encompassing, just waking up, taking a deep breath, exhaling, and letting that settle in your body for a minute would probably be kind of number one to begin. But I have a number of techniques and tips that kind of go into each one of them. And as we see here, there's some practices that we've already kind of built in to mind, body, heart, and spirit to consider. So for example, with the body, doing some very gentle and easy stretches in the morning. You can do them even while you're still in bed. And then the idea of keeping a little notebook maybe by your bed so that you can immediately kind of dump those thoughts, what I call the fearful thoughts or the busy mind, the monkey mind of, oh yeah, I got to do this and I got to do that and I don't want to forget this and oh, I forgot to put that on the grocery list and I have that event tonight. You can literally just dump that stuff on the page right when you wake up so you don't have to carry it around with you. And then this idea of bringing awareness to your thoughts and your breath and your body through what we call mindful meditation, which is really just, again, awareness or observation of thoughts and breath.
Wonderful. I love that. Well, before we kind of jump into, sort of tips and breaking it down a little bit more, curious on for the leaders or employees that you speak with that say, you know what, it's so hard for me to do it. I don't have enough time. I feel like time is something that we also at FitSpot, get a little bit of pushback on from people because, it's just not made a priority until, you start putting some stats in front of them to say to an owner of a company, like you're losing money if your employees are getting burnt out or, you're going to suffer long-term if you get burnt out. How do you sort of approach that, when talking about these practices and trying to get people to, adapt, start living it through action?
Oh, I get it. I really get it. Great question, Hillary. We're really like living in a culture that continually ups the ante on how much can we get done in a day, mm-hmm. Right? How productive can we do? How much can we do remotely? What kind of email can we do as we're driving home? We're really kind of upping the ante. So I understand the pressure, and I understand certainly the financial pressures, stockholder prices of, making a company, again, more and more successful, more lucrative, more productive for their people, run a faster, more efficient organization. For me, the reason why taking a moment to get present is so valuable is because I'm not, as a human being, I have access to probably 10% of my brain when I'm not really thinking about it or when I'm not really so aware or conscious of it. Meaning there's all of this creativity, there's all of this imagination, there's all of this kind of physical support and emotional motivation and adrenaline and excitement and passion that goes to waste if I don't take stock of it before I move forward. So another way to put that is I want to utilize the best of who I am and what I have to bring to my day. I think we've all kind of worked on little sleep or, done a half-hearted, this is all I can do right now because this is all I have available, and felt like, wow, if I'd had a vacation or a good night's sleep or something else, or even a meal in me, I probably would have done a better job. These practices kind of put the best of who we are first. So it's the same idea of let's collect the assets and not really run on our defects.
Right.
Let's use the best of what we have. I think any business owner can identify and accept that. And then let's bring some flexibility to these practices. Because this happens with me all the time. If I wake up and I have 3 minutes instead of having 10 minutes, what can I do in those 3 minutes? And how can I address my mind, body, heart, and spirit in those 3 minutes? We can adapt. We're flexible people. We're creative people. So we can adapt and flex. And look, maybe we have 20 minutes on Tuesday, but like I said, we only have 3 minutes on Monday. Maybe we have a half an hour on Wednesday, but we have 1 minute on Thursday. That's fine. It's a matter of making some choices and just kind of picking from a pool of practices that you can work with.
That's great. And I think that that's, all of those factors and trying to kind of break them down to have a better understanding, that you don't have to have 20 minutes every day. It's okay if you only have 2 minutes, as long as you're prioritizing that, like you would prioritize something else. I think that that's wonderful. And it's advice, I know that I personally need to take and every day being thoughtful about it. So to kind of kick this off on sort of actionable tips for your best day ever. I mean, who doesn't want their best day ever, right? Like you were saying, you're more productive, you're more alert, you can be a better coach for your teams. If you are, living and trying to focus on bettering yourself. So to kick kind of that off, I would love for you to speak a little bit about, kind of step one, like you were saying, around breath, meditation, and the mind, which is key, right?
That's it. It's often, I've been hired as an executive coach for the past 20 years. And what I've recognized, at least over the past 10, but probably pretty early on, was I was often hired for what was considered a mental block. This person is highly intelligent, capable, and competent at what they're doing, but their confidence lacks when they have to give a presentation, or have a lot of interpersonal conflict. Or I don't know if they have quite leadership qualities, but I want them to be my next in line and I have to retire. So often we'd be hired to look at the mind. And when I looked at the mind and recognized myself before I do any kind of work, just like you and I doing, this webinar today, I had to sit for a few minutes and just collect myself and my breath, so that my body and my mind were both clear and centered, so that I could bring the best of myself to this talk today, because life is going to serve us challenge, obstacles, change. And it's really about how we navigate through that in a moment that makes our success, that makes our happiness or our unhappiness.
Yep.
So much around the mind work. So what I started to do is I would teach before we were going to do any presentation, before any of my executives would go into a meeting, we'd start with breath work. We'd start with just taking 3 deep breaths. So it's easy for any of us to do. We all know how to do that. We all know how to do it. So we'll take a deep breath in for a count of 3 and an exhale out for a count of 5. Do that 2 more times. And even just that with eyes closed, you're kind of checked in, a little bit more checked in with yourself. But these are practices, these 3 that are noted here are kind of my best practices every morning. So as I kind of already alluded to, I do usually somewhere between 2 and 10 minutes in bed of just some breath work, finding 5 minutes to kind of clear out the clutter that has collected in my brain overnight. So like I said, sometimes it's just 2 minutes where I'm just breathing for 2 minutes and focusing on that breath, just like we just said, just the 3 beats in, 5 beats out. But number one is I turn my phone off into do not disturb while I'm sleeping. And I do not turn my phone back on until after the first 20 minutes of when I've been awake. So the first thing I'm doing is not reaching for my phone. Whoever it is can live for another 20 minutes. Right. I mean, I know there are people out there that are doing brain surgery, but I think that the majority of us are not. And so, for those 20 minutes that we're all getting up, we'll be that much more productive when we hit the phone. So leave it off, take a few minutes to breathe. And then as mentioned with the journaling, what I would do what happens when I don't write my thoughts down, whatever those thoughts are, like I said, it could be as simple as like, oh, right, I need to pick up the arugula for tonight's dinner, to don't forget to call Joan. I said I was going to call her yesterday, or those kinds of things. Just write it down, get it out of my head, because otherwise it's weighing me down and it's getting in the way of everything else I'm trying to do all morning long. So just get it out, get it on a piece of paper. It could be heavy, it could be light, but just get it out.
Yeah. And then do you feel like, when you are writing it down, have you found that people have said, I'm able to look at my list and then say, you know what, this isn't actually as important as I thought it was, or, this is actually more important, so I can just make sure that's a priority for the day. Do you find that that's that people find it helpful to kind of weed out some of the maybe not so important things that are kind of popping up in their head?
Almost 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Almost 100% of the time, because we just can't function that way, Hillary. Like, we just don't have like a 360 view of our own brains. Once it's black and white on a page, we start to go, oh my gosh, is that really what's bothering me?
Right.
I thought it was this. It's like, no, it's not. That's all. And all I really actually need to do is kind of recognize, all right, I'm a little fearful about that presentation today. It's actually not about those other 10 things. So I'm just going to take a deep breath and know I'm going to, these practices are going to help me do my best, and the rest of it can go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And I think that that's actually kind of, a great sort of moving into sort of the next one when you're talking about, how your mind impacts the rest of your body, and, connected is that beating heart that's keeping you going.
And it's an asset. That's the other thing too. I recognize I've always, I'm a passionate person. I have a lot of enthusiasm for my work. I love working with people. It's a big part of who I am. It's one of my values. So I've always had work where I'm working with people. I want to harness that. I want to take advantage of that and bring that to my work. A, because I enjoy that. It's more fun for me. B, it does better things for the people I work with and for. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think the heart is important to include and shouldn't be overlooked. It can be as simple as the 3 items that I have listed here. I do these all in bed. I'm not even up. I'm not even standing yet. I'll do a quick list of five things I'm grateful for. And it could be I'm grateful for my arms, my legs, my eyes, or my senses. I can count all 5 senses. It can get as deep as you want. It can be as light as you want. But just list a few things so you start to focus on those things. What we focus on is really what will grow in our lives. So put a little focus and some thanks to work. Hug your loved ones. If it's really simple and you live alone, just give yourself a good squeeze in bed, whether it's like pulling your knees up into your body and giving yourself a little extra stretch, or just simply wrapping your arms around your shoulders and giving yourself a little shoulder massage first thing in the morning. Trust me, you're going to feel a difference in your body, but in your soul too. It's worth it. And I always say, if you give a hug, or if you get a hug, you're also giving a hug. So it helps the people around you. So, don't be stingy.
Yeah. I know my dog appreciates it. He gets a lot of love.
Right? I mean, that's the thing. Mine too. He's a little snuggler. And then we get it back. But it really does things for our physiology as well, and helps us kind of relax and know that that we're living beings. We're living beings with heartbeats. So that helps. The essential oils. So I'm a plant medicine practitioner. I was certified in New York and licensed to make remedies for folks around essential oils, plant material. And what I found is these 3 that I list here, anything in the citrus family like lemon or grapefruit, bergamot, which is that lovely smell in Earl Grey tea. So you can even just make a cup of Earl Grey tea. Peppermint or cypress. These are all kind of awakening scents to our senses. So for folks who like essential oils and maybe want to have a little diffuser by your bed, or, just a little bottle of oil, you can actually just take the cap off and just give yourself a good whiff, and it will wake up the mind. It'll wake up the body. It'll just fill you up with a little bit of goodness. So you just kind of have that much more at hand before you get out of bed.
Ooh, I think I need to get a few. I have a peppermint, but I think I need to maybe get a few more. next to my bed. But, as you're talking about this, which is very interesting that as I hear you sort of speak about every single step from, the mind and then connected to the heart, and then the heart, is connected to the body. And, when you're talking about even from the hug and the essential oils, just really activating different parts of the body, sort of how does that kind of morph into sort of the next stage on your morning practices?
Awesome. Great point. I like to say how we do anything is how we do everything. I really thought for a long time, I'm very good at compartmentalizing. I'm just going to work on this for now, or I'm just going to be at work and forget everything else. And it's just not how we function. We're holistic beings. We kind of bring ourselves everywhere. So to start to wake up, the emotional life with those essential oils, as example, or with a nice hug, so a little snuggle with your pup, then you start to get this awareness of, oh, right, I have a body. It's at work. Let's put it to work for me. The body is just amazingly resilient. And we've all known when we've had stress, we've all felt the tightness in the jaw, or maybe in the shoulders or in the back. So if you're carrying that stress around all day, you're going to bring a level of that pain, i.e. that kind of stress and crankiness, into whatever you do. It's going to show up on your face. It's going to show up in your client meetings or in that discussion with your boss. And you just don't have to carry that stuff around. There's really simple stretches to get rid of it. So these stretches, I like I said, you can actually do right in bed. Just a little shift from side to side on the hips. Whether you want to bring your knees into your body or, shift left to right. Just do it really simple, a little rock of the hips. Child's pose for me is a great one. Not only does it kind of engage my spine and my back, but it lets me surrender, what I like to call the big surrender, which is just really to kind of, I don't have to carry everything. I'm just one woman. So I'm working with my environment. I'm working with others always in whatever work I'm doing. So this helps me remember that I don't have to be everything. I don't have to be it all for everybody. I can just kind of relax and surrender and show up and do my best. And I love a good little belly massage, especially first thing in the morning. It kind of gets me ready for digestion, anything that was kind of bothering me from the night before, anything that I've been kind of holding on to emotionally. The belly is really our center of ourself. So just to kind of acknowledge it. It also gets us ready for breakfast. So I like to do a quick little belly massage too, just a few circles in each direction, hand on my belly.
Great. And so when you're talking about, kind of activating the body in the morning, what do you feel is sort of, next steps? I know it's, that sort of next phase and like, okay, now we're ready to get up and get moving. What do you feel is sort of the next step in that?
Yeah. I feel like I like to do a few stretches in bed, like I said, just to kind of acknowledge my body. But I am a workout in the morning kind of girl. I am happiest like on my birthday when I get to kind of design my own day. If I have a day off, my best day starts with a workout. So when I have the benefit of working for a company that brings somebody in to have a workout or, to lead in a meditation or something like that, I know that my whole day is going to work better and I'm going to work better with my team. So that's kind of how I lead into it. But if I just do a few simple kind of stretches in bed to just kind of acknowledge my body is the way I put it, to kind of work out a few of the kinks from how I slept the night before, I feel much better getting out of bed. And then once I'm out and up, now it's time for me to fuel my body. So that's when I start. I'll brush my teeth and then I'll go get some water, usually some warm water with lemon or a tea that I really like I'd mentioned, the Earl Grey tea, which has some citrus. It's a nice wake up. And then some food, often that I prep the night before, because like everybody else, I don't have a ton of time in the morning either. So sometimes it's just overnight oats in a jar or chia pudding or an apple and some nuts. if it's not the kind of morning that I can cook a breakfast. But it's just a little something that I have to kind of get things going and to really honor that my body's going to take me through the day. So I want to feed it and nourish it well.
Yeah. Ugh, your breakfast sounds amazing. I need to get some tips for that.
Anytime.
Yeah, definitely. So as we sort of talk about that, it's activating the body, it's getting your morning moving, and, I guess sort of the last piece of the puzzle, right? Like you were talking about, it is the spirit. I mean, really getting you, kicked off for the day. So many times, like you were saying, each of these components are helping you go into work every morning with a clear head and a happier approach. There's a lot of people that aren't able to do that. What do you feel is the last sort of stage in this morning practice that kind of really puts you to that next stage and feeling better about your morning?
You got it. I've had people say, like, okay, if I only have 2 minutes, what's the most important thing I do? And I hate to give a break to everything else, because I think all the other things I do can, like I said, they don't have to take a lot of time, but they're helpful. If there's 2 things you do or you have 2 minutes and you can do it even during the day, I always say, like, if you need to start your day over, you can do it at lunchtime. You can do it at 5 o'clock as you're walking out the door. You can start your day over at any time. These kind of what I call the soul shakeups, the spirit engagement, these would probably be where I would gear someone. So, and here's why, Hillary. We're made to be social beings as human beings. We're made to be social beings. That's how we've lived for centuries. We've lived with others. Mm-hmm. And yet I recognized, living in New York City and Manhattan for 15 years, I generally lived alone with a lot of other people.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I was living this solitary life, in a very small studio in the village with my headphones on, commuting from place to place and like playing leapfrog all day long around the city to meet with my clients and do this great work and live in this amazing city, but doing it in a very solitary way and missing a major opportunity and a fair amount of happiness and fulfillment in the process. So, taking the headphones off, what I recognized is I need to connect to what's around me. I need to connect to the city. I need to connect to the people, and I need to connect to my work in a way that's going to help those people. And so any one of these or all 3 together, ideally, is what I do before I go out the door. So the 2-minute breathwork exercise, if anybody's ever taken Kundalini yoga, you've heard of maybe something called breath of fire, but any of us can do it. It's really just a rapid breath in and out of the nostrils. So the breath is all through the nose, and it's just a rapid breath, almost like you're sniffing. And what that does is that fires up the body, that fires the brain. It accesses both sides of the brain. And so you're just that much more awake and alive and aware of what's around you. Because again, what I'd recognize in New York is I would pass hundreds of people on the street. I didn't look at a single one of them. I didn't know what was happening around me.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so common. It's when I lived there too, same thing. It's just that it's weird, isn't it?
It is because, like I said, it's not how we're made, but you can actually change your whole day just with eye contact. Mm-hmm. Just by looking into another human being and recognize, oh, right, we're kind of the same, doing the same thing over here. We're not on this island all by ourselves. So it's great. And it's a great thing to do with your team. In the morning or before a meeting, I've definitely led team exercises with any and all of these before, again, going into a big meeting or an event or something that's important that we need to connect with one another. The energy tapping or Qigong is really simple. It's actually just if you're standing with feet hip width apart, knees slightly bent, you really just tap your heels on the ground. So you just continually tap your heels on the ground. And it's what they call a grounding exercise. It actually connects you to, oh, right, I'm walking on Mother Earth. I'm part of this great and vast thing, nature, that's out there all the time. And it just helps to ground the body and the mind. All of this work also engages the spine, which is our nerve center. So these are all kind of great exercises. And then the last one is something really simple that I do every morning before I leave my door. And it's just, I imagine what I'm walking out to. Could be a meeting, could be getting in my car, could be going to the grocery store. But I just send a little bit of positivity out ahead of me to wherever I'm going.
Ooh, I like that. I have a theme song. I try to think of a theme song for me walking out.
Something positive. Can you share it with us?
Well, it's always different, but usually it's some form of Pitbull. I love Latin music. I love I love the dance and when I'm at the gym and really I just kick off my day with like a fun song to just get my energy up.
You are a girl after my own heart. I love it.
Yeah, I think that is, I think what you're saying too is that everybody can modify a bit of this to see what works for them too, based on maybe it's 3 minutes versus 2 minutes, or maybe it's one or the other. It seems like your approach to this can be modified to whatever makes people comfortable.
Please do. Look, life is a practice. It is a practice for us. So in doing this, it's okay to make mistakes and say, wow, that 5-minute breath thing, that was too much for me. But man, I settled on 3 minutes and it worked great. Or I wasn't so down with the breath, but I loved that sending out some positivity to my kids during the day, or like out to that meeting or out to that thing with my boss. That felt great. Pick and choose, play with this. We wanted to give everybody options. Find out and explore what works for you, for your body, for your mind, for your heart, for your soul.
I love that. Well, before we kind of, recap sort of all of these amazing tips just to kick off your morning, we definitely wanted to just touch on a few things around, mindfulness at work, because a lot of this you can do at home, but we also wanted to share with you, some morning practices at work. And I'd love, Chris, for you to kind of touch on a few of these just to help, these leaders as they listen to this webinar on how they can use some of these actionable, tips with their team or, for, other leaders in their space.
You got it. So these are all, I love this list because these are all things I've done and led in group work in organizations that are really at the top of their game. I mean, that's the thing that I recognize. The organizations that are doing, innovative work we admire, they're doing financially successfully, changing who we are as people here in America. They often invest in these things. It's like you can see when we get the best out of the people that we are, we bring our own best to the table, and then we create more success for the organization. So whether it's bringing in a meditation specialist to create a little practice for your team or lead your team in a practice before an event, or maybe every Monday to start the week well, or even midweek, or maybe it's a treat on a Friday so that we end the week well and, can kind of sail into the weekend. Host a stand-up meeting with your team so that we're moving the body. We're not kind of sitting and lagging. I notice for me when I'm sitting, I'm often starting to slump, especially after 10 minutes, my posture weakens. And so the idea of standing up with your team is a great one. It gets the energy up and our creativity moving. Sending out a quote. I've definitely sent lists of quotes for folks to kind of pass around and share because they work for me. I have a gratitude list with some friends where we send gratitude back and forth, and I'm continually inspired all day long with it. So I think this is along those same lines. I love the idea of ending every meeting on a high note. So regardless of where things are at, like I said, we're always going to face challenge. Not every obstacle is going to be solved. It's, we don't live in the sitcom, right? So it's not all going to be solved at the end of the meeting. But let's come together as a team and acknowledge each other. So whether it's like, well done, that, we're doing this work together, and we will find a solution, or great work, everybody. We're ending the meeting early because, we figured it out. We can do what we do. So I love that idea of just always ending on a high note. And then, of course, for me, again, I notice my best productivity is when I'm kind of working together and using my body with my team. So whether that's a morning yoga class or a group stretch or something of that variety, this is part of why I love FitSpot so much and why I'm so proud to be a part of it. I think we are changing the way that how people work so we can have better lives. And so I think these are all great ideas. I don't know if there's one that you like the best, Hillary, or that you've noted, from kind of your work. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for us, being in a small office, here at FitSpot and really being close to each other, I have a bulletin board or a whiteboard right behind me that I have my team change a quote of the week, for instance. So it's up there, it's always there. And then everybody, gets to sort of change it and walk by it and, see what we have kind of going on. And on the marketing team, also doing something where we're actually physically standing up as a team. I think, like you were saying, sort of activating the body. We're sitting at a desk all the time. So getting people to stand up and, share sort of what's working and what their challenge for the day and, how the team can help them, tackle that problem. I think those have been really, helpful for me, not only at FitSpot, but other companies that I've been at. So I think, each of these are easy to do. I think that's the part, you just have to be a mindful leader to make sure that you put these into practice.
Right. Such a good point. A lot of these can be automated, right? Or we can make it a practice, like the ending on a high note. It's easy for us to make that a practice, or even have somebody responsible for the quote of the week.
Right.
Rotate that responsibility around.
Yeah. So people feel like they're also connected to, making it a better place, not just for them, but for their team.
I love it.
I think it's really key. So great. I've really enjoyed, speaking with you, sort of hearing your thought process. There's a lot of takeaways that I know personally that I'm going to start trying to, implement into my morning routine. But I'd love for you to just kind of recap, all of these practices and share with us, just this breakdown before we head off for the day.
You got it. And thanks so much, Hillary. This has really been fun for me too. Start with the phone off. So keep in mind that our thoughts are our fuel. They really are our fuel. So I always say mindfully consume. It's really easy to get into social media or read the newspaper or something else, and we kind of get down this rabbit hole and can't figure out how we got there. Use the first 20 minutes of your day really mindfully as your fuel. You get to choose what goes in. Start laying down. It doesn't have to be big and complicated. You don't have to, create a whole yoga class in your bedroom. It can be very simple stretches, a little breath work, or even get a hug, as we mentioned. Intentionally consider your inspiration. So as I said, think about the mindful consumerism, but really think about what your thoughts are. Get out the stuff that's kind of bothering you, get it on the page so you can see it a little more clearly, or even keep an inspiring book near your bed. I have a little list of books that I rotate through, but I just flip it open and take a quote and go, all right, that's how I got the Live Your Best Day. It came from one of my little quote books. So that's a lot of fun. Nourish and give thanks. Don't forget, we need to refuel and hydrate the body so it functions well for us all day. So it can be really simple, something you throw in a jar, piece of fruit, not something that you can throw in your bag and take with you. I've eaten a lot of overnight oats on the subway, so I know it can be done. And most importantly, acknowledge your power. Acknowledge who you are, the value of who you are, and all that you're bringing to the table. So start by affirming your day, affirming your life. And the way I love to do that is to send out some positivity and optimism to whoever I'm going to meet with before I walk out my door.
I love it. And I think that that's actually a great way also to end the webinar, on a good note, and, really to be kicking off not only our mornings, but just our days. Like you said, if your morning doesn't start off like you want it to, that you have other times throughout the day to try to, kind of restart it so you can have that best day. After, just so everybody knows, we're sending this out. You're welcome to share this webinar. We will also share a little bit of information, not only about the FitSpot team, if you want to get in touch with us, as well as Chris's information, if you are in the LA area, or if you'd like to learn more about everything she's working on. So we really appreciate the time. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. This was very fun, and I'm excited about, taking back some of these practices for my team.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Hillary, and wonderful to be with you all today.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.